Hello everyone, my name is John. Welcome back to the channel. Now, I want you to imagine for a minute that you're working for one of the world's largest meatpacking plants, and you're working there during COVID-19, and you find out that the management of that plant is betting with each other that you are the next one to get sick. How would that make you feel? This is outrageous beyond outrage. And what happened to that management once they got caught? You may be surprised to find out, so stick around. On April 14, 2020, the U.S. Department of Labor announced citations for Tyson Foods after a worker was killed at its poultry processing plant in Carthage, Missouri. The worker, a 45-year-old maintenance man, was caught in a machine's rotating shaft while cleaning it. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration cited Tyson for 2 willful violations for failing to implement and train workers on procedures to prevent machinery from starting during maintenance. The agency proposed penalties of $263,438. This was not an isolated event. It was one case in a documented pattern spanning decades. Since 2000, Tyson Foods has paid $465,512,940 in federal penalties across 358 documented violations of environmental, worker safety, and food quality regulations. This includes worker deaths, rivers contaminated with toxic discharge, product recalls, and groundwater pollution. Yet, walk into any American grocery store and Tyson products fill the meat case. The company remains the largest meat processor in the United States, supplying millions of Americans daily while simultaneously accumulating one of the most extensive regulatory violation records in the food industry. The $465 million in penalties comes from federal enforcement actions spanning multiple agencies, including the Environmental Protection Agency, OSHA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Justice. The 358 violations average to more than one federal enforcement action every 3 weeks for over 2 decades. These are not minor infractions. EPA records show Tyson facilities have released over 371 million pounds of pollutants into waterways since 2010. OSHA data documents 126 worker amputations in Tyson facilities between 2016 and 2020, a rate of more than 2 lost fingers, hands, or limbs every month for 4 years. USDA inspection records repeatedly cite Tyson for food safety failures, including inadequate temperature controls, rodent infestations, and equipment contaminated with harmful bacteria. The financial impact of these penalties must be viewed in context. Tyson Foods reported annual revenue of $53.282 billion for fiscal year 2022. This means the total penalties over 23 years represent less than 0.9% of a single year's revenue. For a corporation of this scale, $500 million in fines can function as a cost of business rather than a meaningful deterrent. On June 25, 2003, Tyson Foods pled guilty in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Missouri to 20 felony violations of the Clean Water Act. The charges stem from its Sedalia, Missouri plant, which discharged untreated or inadequately treated wastewater for years. Missouri regulators had repeatedly cited the company, and the state had filed lawsuits, yet the violations continued until a federal criminal investigation was initiated. Tyson paid a $5.5 million federal criminal fine and a $2 million community service payment and was required to hire an outside environmental auditor. 15 years later, a Tyson subsidiary was again convicted of criminal Clean Water Act violations in Missouri. On February 23, 2018, Tyson Poultry, Inc. was sentenced in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Missouri to pay a $2 million criminal fine and serve a 2-year probation term for illegally discharging untreated wastewater from its Monett, Missouri facility. The 2020 death in Carthage, Missouri was a preventable tragedy. OSHA's investigation found the company failed to implement and train workers on lockout/tagout procedures, which are federal requirements designed to prevent the unexpected energization of equipment during service. The 126 amputations between 2016 and 2020 represent life-altering injuries. OSHA enforcement records across multiple states document a pattern of inadequate machine guarding and failures to provide proper safety training, suggesting systemic issues rather than isolated incidents. In June 2014, the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service announced that Tyson Foods was recalling 36,420 pounds of chicken nugget products. The recall was initiated after consumers reported finding hard plastic pieces in the product, which was traced to broken production line equipment. USDA inspection records repeatedly show Tyson facilities failing basic food safety standards. A consistent pattern emerges where facilities fail an inspection, implement corrections to pass a re-inspection, and then gradually revert to non-compliance, only to be cited for the same problems in the next inspection cycle.
In April 2020, over 1,000 workers at the Tyson Waterloo, Iowa plant contracted COVID-19. Plant manager Tom Hart organized a cash buy-in, winner-take-all betting pool where plant managers and supervisors were betting on how many employees would contract the virus. One plant manager called it a glorified flu, stopping one employee en route to get tested for the virus, telling him that we all have symptoms, but you have a job to do. Fortunately for these employees who were suffering under this management, 7 of them were fired after an investigation by Attorney General Eric Holder. Now, typically this would be called negligence. This is not that. We have people betting how many of their own employees will get sick. This wasn't negligence. This was entertainment at the expense of human life.
The enforcement system struggles to create meaningful change. As of 2023, OSHA's maximum penalty for a willful violation that results in a worker's death is $145,027. For a company with $53.282 billion in annual revenue, this maximum fine is a negligible cost. This creates a perverse incentive where the cost of occasional penalties can be cheaper than the cost of comprehensive compliance. Furthermore, regulators face practical constraints. OSHA has approximately 1,850 inspectors responsible for over 8 million work sites. Large corporations like Tyson employ extensive legal and compliance teams to manage enforcement actions. Compounding this is an information gap for consumers. When purchasing Tyson-branded chicken at a grocery store or eating a chicken sandwich at a restaurant, there is no label disclosing the supplier's record of environmental, safety, or food quality violations. The product's history is opaque, preventing consumers from making fully informed choices. Tyson Foods has paid nearly $500 million in federal penalties for violating regulations designed to protect the environment, workers, and food safety. The company has been convicted of felonies, cited for worker deaths and amputations, and repeatedly failed food safety inspections. This record highlights a system where corporate penalties are often affordable rather than preventive, and where the scale of a company can shield it from the consequences that would cripple a smaller operation. The real costs are borne by workers who suffer injuries, communities with contaminated water, and consumers who cannot access the information needed to hold corporations accountable through their purchasing decisions.
Wow, that was breathtaking. I mean, just the callousness. So I hope you got value out of this video. I hope you learned something about what goes on behind the scene at some of these meatpacking plants, the operations that goes on behind the scenes, the powerlessness of the employees, the amputations that happens inside of these meatpacking plants. I mean, it's just astonishing. And people who are there sometimes feel trapped. They have to work, they have to provide a living for their family. However, they're powerless. They either lose their job or work in these unsafe conditions. It's just a terrible situation to be in. So I hope that was eye-opening for you. I hope you got value out of it. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel. All of that will help just spread this to more people who need to know this type of information. So I hope that helps. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video.